Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. It is episode 50, and it's also our last episode of the year. Now, granted, we're going to have a Weekend Crusaders end of the year show where we go over everything, but this is our last actual Weekend Crusaders show for the year. It's the Christmas episode. It is Christmas Day. I mean, this is not going to come out Christmas Day because of YouTube, but it is Christmas Day, and we figured, everyone's asleep. Let's shoot some videos. So these are definitely some movies that those Christmas films that just randomly drop on Christmas Day. Some are Christmassy, some are not Christmassy, but we did not pick any Christmas movies this time out. We did have a wide assortment of films for this. What do you think about this list this week?
It's definitely an eclectic bunch. Because usually the Christmas stuff is always releases before Christmas. They don't usually drop that on Christmas Day, but there's usually there's always one more adult film that drops on Christmas, and there's always one family film that drops on Christmas, and some comedies. So you get a lot of variety for this week. So yeah, we picked an interesting bunch here, which we're both hoping we remember because it's been a long week for both of us.
Yes.
And hopefully we remember enough to talk.
Let's put it this way: we watched all 5 of these movies.
We're doing this late, so later than usual. That's what
we actively probably watched these movies at least probably 10 days ago. But in those 10 days, we've worked pretty much the last week of Christmas retail. And if you guys have been following the channel, I've been watching a ton of movies for reviews. So I've had 15 to 20 movies between the last movie I watched for this show and now. And we've done the Spider-Man review and all that kind of stuff. So we're going off of what we can just go with.
Right now. Sean stops and asks me, "What is this movie again, Brian?" Just know there's a reason for it.
Yeah. So if we're not as in great detail as we are for some of these movies, there's a reason. But it's Brian and I. Just let's get the ball rolling, and we'll be fine. I think you guys are gonna be okay with it. But we are going to start off first with our revisited film. This is when I think back to football movies. Now, granted, we have some of the movies we've already talked about on the show, like Varsity Blues and wow, I just blanked on all football movies right there. But favorite football films, you have Waterboy, you've got I'm literally, my brain literally just went blank. Unnecessary.
There's We Are Marshall. There's The Replacements.
Yes, there you go. The Replacement. All this shit. This one is one of those that I always think of on my list as well as one of my favorite football films, and it's definitely a unique film. So going into that, we are talking about the 1999. It's Oliver Stone, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Oliver Stone football film, Any Given Sunday. Any Given Sunday came out December 22nd, 1999, had a budget of $55 million, had a weekend opening of $13.58 million. It was number one its opening weekend, its only week at the number one spot, and had a finished box office of $100.23 million, $75.53 million domestic, and $24.7 million international. We talked about this, especially over the last recent weeks, where you remember a movie and you either remember a line from that film immediately, or you remember a moment. And for me, whenever I think Any Given Sunday, I think, my name is Willie Bean. It seems like the Jamie Foxx kind of thing. This to me, this movie, granted, I've watched movies earlier than this with him. This was my introduction to Jamie Foxx. This was my this is Jamie Foxx to everybody. I knew he was a comedian, and he did was it the Jamie Foxx Show?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it was? But
before that, in Living Color, of course, yeah.
Yeah. But I never watched those shows. So for me, my introduction to Jamie Foxx was as Willie Beeman, aka Cam Newton, aka Lamar Jackson, aka RG3. It's he's basically playing those characters. Now, granted, those people weren't playing football at the time, so it's weird because he's basically playing that archetype of a character. And this movie, it's very, very over the top. It totally is very over the top, and I forgot how over the top it was. But this also, because wasn't the Replacements? Didn't the Replacements come out right around the same time?
I believe Replacements was 2000. So yeah.
Yeah, so within the same year. I mean, within a year of each
other.
Within
a year, yeah.
And you had the Replacements, and the Replacements, I still think the Replacements is way better. I love the Replacements, and I will always watch that movie whenever it's on TV. But this was definitely the more fantasized or over stylized kind of film. I do think Oliver Stone kind of gets up his own ass on this film with his over artistic approach, with his random just shots of like Vince Lombardi out of nowhere and all these weird just artistic choices. Like he's really, really trying to make this an Oscar film, and it just kind of looks like a jumbled mess of garbage. But in that, it's a really good football film. That's an actual football film. It's not about like a football movie where it's about like everything outside of the football game. No, this is a football movie. I mean, like I said, the general plot, you follow the Miami Sharks, which whenever you had to create a football team in Madden or whatever, I always did the Miami Sharks because I love this team. But you got, I think it's like 4 or 5 weeks left in the regular season. They're basically trying to make the playoffs, and their star quarterback, played by Dennis Quaid, goes down, and then their backup goes down, and then Jamie Foxx is the third string, and he gets brought in, and that's basically where the movie goes. You have Cameron Diaz playing the owner. You got Al Pacino playing the coach. You got some real football players. You got Jim Brown's one of the coaches. Lawrence Taylor's a player on the team. LL Cool J is the running back. It's got a great cast through this. There's more that I want to go on, but let's go ahead with you, Brian. What are your general thoughts of Any Given Sunday?
Yeah, well, there's I really enjoy a lot of football movies. There's kind of different kinds. There's like the inspirational, sports movies. There's the comedies like Replacements, things like that. And then when you get into ones like this, which are dramas, but they aren't necessarily showing it, in the best light. It's kind of critical of football, which is why those are the ones that never use actual NFL team names because they do not get cooperation.
Here's the weird thing. This is why I could never tell what they were trying to do with this movie, because they do bring up the NFL in this film. So it's like, are they in the NFL or are they like the minor league? Or are they like the other league? Because it's like they do mention NFL team names and Vince Lombardi, and also like that's clearly NFL, but they're not in the NFL.
So I guess, I mean, they can apparently reference it, but they weren't going to get cooperation to be able to use real team names like on their team and things like that, because they didn't want to, reflect badly on those teams. Because I mean, this is one of those movies. It's showing the darker side of the sport. It's showing the drug use. It's showing the way the medical staff is basically like, put these guys out there in danger of their own lives. It's showing the greed. It's showing all that kind of aspect of it. But I mean, this is actually one that I remember really, really liking. I thought, like you said, it starts with the cast. It's got a great cast put together. The movie, I mean, the actual sports moments in it I think are really well done. What I really have never liked about it, and for some reason even more this time watching it, the movie's biggest problem is that it's made by Oliver Stone.
Yeah,
because the way he directs this, not only just individual shots and scenes, because he's throwing in random shots of whatever, whether it be animals or something randomly thrown in shots that sometimes just a weird camera stuff and out of focus and shaky things, and he's kind of in that natural born killer's mode that he's just like
it's almost like
experimental.
It's almost like he snorted a bunch of cocaine and it's like action.
Yeah,
let's throw this. Bam!
Yeah, the direction of the editing is by far the worst thing about this movie. And I think if this movie was filmed and told more straightforward, that it would be better off. And also just in the fact that this is a movie that is like 2 hours and 45 minutes or something like that, 2 hours, 40 minutes, I think. And it does not need to be that long. It's one of those movies that I always say something like, there's a good 2-hour movie buried under this 2.5-hour running time, because if they cut down a lot of stuff, I mean, there's a lot of side stories that have nothing to do with anything. That Al Pacino's basically got this hooker played by Elizabeth Berkley that he's hooking up with.
That goes nowhere.
And she looks good and all, but I mean, it has nothing to do with anything. Yeah. And so you're like, why are you telling this part of the story? And then you have characters like Lauren Holly, who's Dennis Quaid's wife, who basically says, I don't care if you're injured, you go out there and kill yourself so I can get your money.
Exactly. So it's like, and then even it is a main focal point, but like the whole Cameron Diaz storyline is just kind of like no one cares about her character. But yeah, like obviously to me,
she's basically playing the drama version of the owner from Major League, who basically wants to move the team, and so she doesn't care what the fuck she has to do.
Except that she does want the team to win.
She wants them to win,
really wants
but to leverage a new deal to move to a different town.
Yeah, she unlike Major League, she wants the team to be the best they can be. But yeah, it's to me the over stylized part of like the darkness of the NFL or football with the drugs, the prostitutes, the everything of it. I think they did a better job of that on ESPN's The Playmakers.
I love Playmakers. You're like the only other person I know who's
Playmakers is phenomenal, and it should never gotten canceled.
Yeah.
The NFL forced that show to get canceled after the first
They
season.
basically pressured ESPN, like, if you want to keep covering our stuff, you got to.
And that show was fantastic. And I think that did a better job than this. Was, like I said, Oliver Stone just over, like, just random. Like, that was that one scene. I forgot what the name of the linebacker. But, like, they make fun of him because he's a white boy who can't dance. So his retaliation is, let's throw a fucking alligator or crocodile into the shower with all the guys. And it's just a random just shots. Like, that wasn't needed. Or Lawrence Taylor, like, sawing through Jamie Foxx's Hummer because he called the defense crap. Like, just just all this excess, like, stuff. Like you said, there's a great 2-hour film in there. But there's just so much extra bullshit. Now, the Lawrence Taylor storyline, I think, is a very, very important storyline in the film. I think James Woods does phenomenal as the doctor. When he has that one big blow-up scene. Now, it's James Woods, so he overacts it a little bit. But I think it's a great scene where he's going after Al Pacino and all this. And I love that scene where, like, at the very end, he's like, hey, but we did win one. Like, where he has his big blow-up, and then at the very end, he's like, okay, well, I'm screwed. But, hey, we did good at one point. But I liked that storyline with Lawrence Taylor about his head injury and how he knew that if he took one more hard hit, he could be paralyzed or die. But he's like, hey, if I get 3 tackles and a sack, I get $1 million for my family and all this kind of stuff. So that risk was there. And then you have the Dennis Quaid character, which I really wish they would have kind of hit that one a little bit better, the Dennis Quaid storyline. But yeah, and then like, for me, one thing I really loved about the film, though, I love the music. It's when they're playing football. Like, there's 2 parts of the film. It's both, like, it's different parts of the film, but it's the same thing. I love when they show Jamie Foxx throwing a deep bomb, and it's what you're watching the ball spiral into a receiver's hand. The music that's playing both times they do that, I love the music for that shot. And like I said, the football field stuff, I love how they show the football parts of the film. I love, like, what was it, Jamie Foxx first gets thrown in the game, like, the camera's from his face mask, so you feel what he's feeling in that moment, how, like, he is in over his head. Like, all the linemen from the other team are just like whoosh, like, right in on him. I do think they go a little over the top, like the one scene where, like, the football player's eye got yanked out, which I'm like, that's no, like, that's not, no, don't do that. But I really like how they shot the football aesthetics of this film. I think all that parts.
Well, the actual football stuff, I thought was shot very well. Yeah,
I think the ripping the eyeball part was a little over the top.
That was they're so random in there.
It was just throwing it. Like I said, Oliver Stone just randomly throwing shit in, and just, like, also, like the NFL coaches on the other side, like, calling, like, derogatory names and stuff to either the other coaches on the other team or to the players. It's like, you can't do that. Like, you would have been fined up your ass if that had happened. But that's and I will say this, Al Pacino's pregame speech for the final game still gets me. That is still a phenomenal pregame speech. That moment where Jamie Foxx finally kind of realizes, like, oh shit, like, Al Pacino's actually a great coach and I'm gonna actually play for him, kind of moment. I think that's a great scene. But yeah, I agree with you. There's so much nonsense and utter crap in this film. That's 2 hours and 40 minutes, but you eliminate 40 minutes of that, and there is a fantastic 2-hour football film.
Yeah, because I don't think, honestly, looking at it, I can't think of a single person who put on a bad performance in the movie.
Cool.
And starting with Jamie Foxx, because like you said, he had done some movies before this. Mostly supporting, but a couple leads. But this is his first dramatic role. And then
I think he did Ali within a year or two. This opened the door to Jamie Foxx.
And I'm glad that Jamie Foxx got this and was able to show what he can do. Which, he went on to win an Oscar, of course, but because it was originally supposed to be Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. Puff Daddy at the time.
Oh God, no!
Was cast in this, and he showed up at camp. Apparently, he showed up at the
like the football camp,
training camp, but basically when they were starting to get ready to make the movie. And first of all, I showed up with an entourage, which pissed off Al Pacino and Oliver Stone and everybody. But apparently, he could not convincingly throw a football for shit. I think one of the guys who plays the linebacker, I think it might have been one with the alligator, apparently was like, yeah, he showed up and he threw the ball like a girl, so they put him on a plane. So I was so happy to hear about that, because if he'd been in this movie, that would have sucked.
No, at that point, that would have been just horrible. And
Yeah.
I honestly, I remember like thinking back to Dennis Quaid. I'm like, yeah, he can play baseball in The Rookie, but I don't know if I can buy Dennis Quaid as a football player. But then you watch this movie, you're like, I can 100% buy Dennis Quaid.
If they tried to play him as a quarterback in his prime, I might not have bought it. But he
No,
kind of was on
like a
on
Dan
that end of his
Marino.
career kind of thing where he's still good, but he's like not, he's not the
Yeah.
young, fast guy anymore.
Yeah.
So I totally bought
And like
it.
I love that moment. What was it at his last play? I love how they kind of did that in the film. That's one of the things that, like, yes, it's artistic up the ass of Stone for doing this, but like that moment where I think he scores that touchdown, he gets spun, and he looks into the stands and he only sees the one person in the stands, and that's like their way of saying like that's your call, like you're done. And that moment I thought was great, and just also like the very beginning of the film when he gets hurt and he's like digging into the turf.
Oh yeah.
I
could just feel that. It was like,
yes, you could feel Dennis Quaid's pain, or even when he's in this when he's like on.
And then James Wood has come on like, what are you, a baby? Need to just like walk off.
Fuck up, man.
I think I broke my back.
Yeah, he's like, oh, he's down now too. Come on, let's go around and get him. Yeah, but like even that one point where he's rehabbing, he's like rolling around on the ball. You just see that he's not where he is anymore. I'm just like, dude, Dennis Quaid's killing this role. I just wish he would have given him more, because they do kind of forget about Dennis Quaid, and they're like, oh wait, yeah, he's in this, and then they kind of just rush him in, and it's like, no, you got.
That's the thing is Al Pacino's kind of supposed to be the good guy of this movie. You're rooting for him but then like even at the end when Dennis Quaid's like, oh, my back's not there, man, I'm gonna get hurt when hurts off, and Al Pacino say, no, you're fine, you can play. I'm like, shut the hell up.
Yeah, there's no one is good. Like Dennis Quaid's good the whole movie. I don't think Dennis Quaid does really anything bad in the film, but
no.
Everyone kind of has like a good bad moment.
Yeah,
like you have Cameron Diaz who's like, hey, James Woods, don't tell them what they need to know. Don't tell them the extra shit, which led to James Woods getting fired basically. Because even James Woods at that point was like, dude, I can't lie about this. And like, well, don't lie, just don't tell them the whole truth, kind of thing. But it like I said, there is a good. If you guys have never seen this, you got to temper some shit with this, because like there's a lot of garbage in this film.
If you can get past the Oliver Stone-ness of it, you'll really enjoy this movie.
It is a fantastic football film. Is it on anything?
It is not anywhere for free right now.
Gotcha. All right,
I would not be surprised if it shows up in January football season though.
Oh yeah, well I mean heck, even right now when we're nearing the end of the season, going into the playoffs, absolutely. Yeah. Now we are going to move on to Brian's pick. This is an Oscar film. I had never seen. I'd heard about it, but actually, you know what? I always got this and Network mixed up. I don't know why, but for some reason, I always thought this and Network were like the same film. But we are talking about the Oscar film 1987's Broadcast News. Broadcast News came out December 25th, 1987. Had a budget of $15 million. Had a weekend opening of $5.44 million. It made $197,542 in limited releases, and it was number 4 its opening weekend. Had a finished box office of $67.33 million, $51.24 million domestic, and $16.08 million international. Brian, go ahead, because you picked this for a reason. I had never seen it till this show, so go ahead and start it off.
Honestly, it was one of those ones where I'm looking over the list trying to find something to pick this week, and we kind of picked the main ones as like our featured and stuff. And so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to pick for this one, and I came across this one. I'm like, you know what? I actually wanted to pick this one as a revisited one for myself, essentially, because I remember liking the movie, but I have not watched it in a long time. So I'm like, you know what? I'll watch it. I'll check it out. So I rewatched this for the first time in a long time. This one gets a lot of praise for it. I mean, it got tons of Oscar nominations and things like that. But I don't love it as much as everybody else, but I do actually very much enjoy this movie. But it's mainly because of the performances of the 3 leads, that being Holly Hunter, William Hurt, and Albert Brooks. What keeps me from liking it more is the fact that, well, mainly Albert Brooks. He's an actor who I can only kind of stand in certain roles. And this one, it's like he's supposed to be like the nice guy, as opposed to William Hurt, who's kind of like, this pretty boy who's kind of moving in on his hair. But Albert Brooks' character in this is so completely unlikable. It's like he's kind of a jerk to everybody. He's condescending to everybody. He pouts when he doesn't get his way, and it's just it just made me really not like that character, and that kind of held me back from I don't really care about anything this character is going for. Holly Hunter, this is kind of this is probably her breakthrough role, which kind of threw her into the the A-list. She's phenomenal in this. It's got a supporting cast that includes Joan Cusack, who did a great job. Jack Nicholson is in there as he's like the big network anchor who everybody else kind of wants to aspire to either be him or to be in his good graces. So it's got a great supporting cast to it. It's James L. Brooks who's directed it, who's done tons of good stuff, like From As Good As It Gets to this and lots of other movies. But it's just a movie that it's a comedy. It's a romantic comedy, I guess. Although the romance subplot kind of comes and goes, and they're kind of sometimes focusing more on workplace, sometimes focusing more on the relationships. And I have one problem near the end, but I'll talk about that later. What were your thoughts? Is this the first time you've seen this?
This was my first time. When I heard what this movie was, I was like, oh, so this is like HBO's The Newsroom, but 1987. And that's what I was kind of going in with, like, oh, because if you've never seen HBO's The Newsroom, it's phenomenal. And if you guys have never seen it, watch the first 10 minutes. If you're not hooked after the first 10 minutes, then there's nothing I can do for you. So I was thinking, oh, well, this is an Oscar film. It's probably a lot like that. It 100% isn't, which was kind of a bummer for me because it's called broadcast news. It doesn't really matter. The news doesn't really matter in this. It's all really about these three main characters. But these three main characters are great. And I agree with you with Albert Brooks. He is a little bitch in this film. Yeah. He is unlikable to the max. But when he's opposite Holly Hunter, it works. It really works. Honestly, you know who he reminded me of in this film? Was Ben Savage in Boy Meets World. He was basically Corey Matthews as a grown man in this film.
I've never seen it, so I'll take your word for it.
Okay. Well, anyone who knows Boy Meets World, Albert Brooks is basically playing Corey. But I'm also not a big Albert Brooks fan. Like, for me, when I think of him, it's like, oh, he's Marlin from Finding Nemo. Also, not necessarily very much a likable character. But with Holly Hunter is phenomenal in this. This is the first movie that I saw Holly Hunter in where I go, there's Elastigirl. Like, because I've seen Holly Hunter in a bunch of things. I've never seen her as Elastigirl in The Incredibles. Because I love Elastigirl. I think she's amazing in The Incredibles. But it's like, I see the actor and I see the cartoon. I'm like, they don't connect to me. This is the first one I'm like, now I see her. Because I think Holly Hunter's character in this is the perfect mix of quirky and manic that it gels beautifully in this film. It makes sense why Albert Brooks and William Hurt's character are madly in love with her to certain points in the film. Hell, if I would be in love with her because she's just such like this awesome character. I honestly totally forgot about Joan Cusack until you mentioned her. That one scene with Joan Cusack when she's running.
Which is basically, oh, there it is. I had to have it one time today. But when they're trying to race it to get on air and
stuff like that, like that is such physical comedy, works so perfectly. I totally as soon as the first thing I picture her sliding under the file cabinet. Yeah, Joan Cusack kills it, and then they don't really use her much more after that.
No, she's just kind of in the background for most.
But yeah, but see, like I said, I was hoping for a newsroom kind of film, and I didn't get that. I was kind of bummed, but I loved the interaction of these three characters. That it didn't at the end of the day, it didn't really matter to me because I loved watching all three of these. I loved the kind of mental chess match that William Hurt and Albert Brooks were having with each other because they're both trying to one-up each other. William Hurt definitely does not have the brains compared to Albert Brooks, but he's got something else that Albert Brooks doesn't have, which is style, charisma, and likability. And those two, they keep trying to one-up one another. And like Albert Brooks is like, he's like that. To me, it's almost like kind of like watching Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, where Albert Brooks is Wile E. Coyote. He thinks he's so clever. He's got to outsmart because it's just a dumb bird. And then William Hurt's just like, yeah, but I'm Roadrunner, so I'm gonna win. And then here's Holly Hunter.
You can feel as condescending as you want, but I've still got the looks and the money and the girl. So
like Holly Hunter still wants to be with me. So at the end of the day, I'm the one that's doing this. And watching Albert Brooks, his moment where he gets to anchor the news. Oh my God, that's office level uncomfortable. It was,
I mean, it was some seriously fake sweat coming down his face.
oh
But it
yeah,
was
but it's a
still
Michael
an entertaining
Scott
scene.
level of uncomfortableness in that film, and they shot that great. And like when she comes back, he's telling her about it. She's like, "You're fucking with me." He goes, "No, I'm not." It was that bad. But yeah, I also like Jack Nicholson's little moment, like that one scene near the end where they're like, "Well, you know, if you cut $1 million off your paycheck, like a lot of people's jobs, he's just like, that was a joke," kind of thing. But yeah, to me, my biggest qualm, and this might be your qualm, I hated the ending.
The ending reeks of like test screenings or something where people wanted a happy ending because the movie felt like it ended.
A happy ending.
And then they add on this scene where it's like, oh, they all meet years later and they get along and they're happy and being like.
Because like honestly, like I'm watching the movie and when she leaves William Hurt at the airport, which even like I get why she'd be mad, but it's like, wow, like okay, calm down. Seriously, calm down. Because like he's inexperienced and he's kind of a doofus and it's not like he chose to do it. He kind of, you heard the girl off camera basically kind of,
you're gonna cry there.
They edged him to do it, and so then he did. Like I was like, okay, like granted, like it's wrong, but
she gets all holier than thou. Oh yeah,
you're gonna be in love with him. Like let's not act like he just punched a child in the face, you know. But it's like, come on. But then she leaves. And I'm on the person that she's going after Albert Brooks. And then it jumps ahead like, what was it, like 5 years, 7 years later or whatever?
Whatever it is. And he's still in the friend zone. Yeah.
And he's married with a kid now. But it's just like, and that's the end. And I'm just like, that's how you chose to end this film?
Yeah. It just felt like it totally just tacked on this ending for no reason. That kind of blew it for me. Well, that and the fact that the movie, because it is just kind of about these three characters, there's not really a climax to the movie. So it doesn't really build to anything. It's just kind of like, okay, here's the movie ends. But I was okay with that. But then they add on that coda and you're just like, why?
Yeah, it'd be one thing if the thing that William Hurt did amounted to something that would have cut him down or he became more evil about it or more of a dick about it that led to this, which allowed Albert Brooks to rise up. So like granted, I mean, we're trying to fantasize this whole thing it's 1987. They don't, you know, if it was today's, they probably would have done that and stuff.
And this is Sean's second favorite Holly Hunter movie from 1987 too. So he loved Raising Arizona.
Oh god, this was from the same year. I didn't dislike her in that movie, but no.
Holly Hunter in this movie, I know you already talked about her, but this is my favorite Holly Hunter. When she gets to, you know, there are definitely dramatic parts to it, but she kind of shows why people find her so endearing because she's just adorable and she's cute and she's quirky and just the way she talks and she's got this energy to her. So in this, I always try to get everybody to watch Home for the Holidays. If you've ever seen the movie Always, the Stephen King movie, I love her. Steven Spielberg movie, I love her in that. But so yes,
well, I love the moment where she leaves William Hurt to go check on Albert Brooks after his horrible anchor job or anchor thing, and she's like, I'm in love with him, and he's like, get the fuck out, like get out.
Because he's an asshole. Yeah,
he's being an asshole, and then she basically just unloads like, this is important to me, and like they have this like he gets reeled right back and like, we are friends, and they have these moments where it's like it's so tense because you don't know one of them's about to snap, and then eventually it takes William Hurt to call and cancel, which, come on, you wouldn't have canceled that. Would you have canceled her? No, you wouldn't have. You're like, I'll stay up. I'll stay up and wait for you. But like that whole interaction with them, I think works so well because of Holly Hunter. And I agree, it makes sense why these guys or anyone would just want to be in, you know, with Holly Hunter. And then like even her moments where she's so perky and quirky and like everyone's like, all right, great day, and then as soon as it gets quiet, she just starts crying.
Yeah,
because it's like I guess she just has to let that emotion out, kind of thing. They never really explain it, but I think it didn't necessarily need to be explained. It's just, I think, where she's just so overwhelmed that she needs to like take 15 seconds to just decompress, almost like kind of like an engine that just needs to like spur out some steam just to kind of condense itself. Like maybe that's what it was like with her, where she's just so tightly wound that she just needs to let go for that like short amount of time.
Well, I read it as that, but I also read it as, you know, when she's in the workplace and that she puts forth this facade not besides, it's not fake. I mean, she has to be brave and bold because she's in charge and all this stuff. Behind closed doors, she just feels the pressure, like you said.
Well, yeah, because like literally the very first moment we see of her, she's like in a
The first time you see her as an adult as Holly Hunter, yeah.
Yeah, and then she starts crying. She's like, "Whoa, what the hell happened?" And then she does it again in the office. You're like, "Okay, I get what I get it. Like, are they going to explain it, or are they just going to trust that the audience is going to understand?" Which that's what they did. They trusted the audience in understanding it. But yeah, I think she should have won the Oscar for this film. Like, I think she got robbed.
I don't know who got it that year.
I looked it up. I'll filibuster real quick while I find it.
Oh, you want me to buy it? Okay.
Yeah, because I have it right here.
I don't have anything more to say about this movie, so I'm just gonna make you.
Of course, you.
Sharon
Moonstruck. I've never seen Moonstruck.
I've never been that impressed with that one. I definitely would have got Holly Hunter myself.
Yeah, I've never seen Moonstruck, so you really can't. Outside of her slapping Nicolas Cage and snap out of it.
Although to be fair, I mean, it was that one, the winner, then Glenn Close and Fatal Attraction, Meryl Streep and Ironweed, and Holly. It was a tough year.
But yeah, but I'm glad I saw it. I really, really liked it. I do think they could have done more on the actual news side of things to kind of make it a little bit stronger. But for what it was, which to me was a film about 3 different kinds of people all coming together and learning to one-ups each other, at least to try to get Holly Hunter, and then at the very end, none of them get her kind of thing. I think it worked really, really well. But yeah, broadcast news, is it on anything?
HBO Max.
It's on HBO Max. So if you guys want to see Holly Hunter when she was adorable and likable and and probably the most
elastic. She still is, but yeah, she was.
Oh no, she still is. But to me, the most Elastigirl like in any of her films, this is definitely the one. Definitely check out Broadcast News. Plus, like I said, William Hurt is good, and Albert Brooks is Albert Brooks. But anyway, we're gonna move on to our stinker movie. I said on our last episode that this movie's like right up my alley on something I would like with Sin City and 300, and I was so excited to see this because the cast looks great. And then I heard how bad it was, and I just never watched it. And you said that you cannot wait to see my anguish face while watching this movie. So we are talking about the superhero movie, and I say that because it's confusing that it's superhero. The Spirit. The Spirit came out December 26, 2008, had a budget of $60 million, had a weekend opening of $6.46 million. It was number 9 its opening weekend, and had a finished box office of $39.16 million, $19.8 million domestic, and $19.35 million international. Yeah, so this was a movie.
Are you sure?
I told the first thing I said to you when we were about to watch this, I go, the first thing I think of when I think of The Spirit is South Park with Cartman as the king, because that's where they got this was from The Spirit. It was the coon. So literally, like, the first thought I have is of South Park spoofing this. But yeah, Brian, take it away, because this was definitely an experience.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, Sin City, which I'm not a giant fan of, but it was a hit and a lot of people liked it.
I mean,
and
yeah,
it had that same kind of feel. He's got the essentially black and white. This is more of like a sienna tinted world, but it's a black and white movie with like the spot color of red and things like that, and so it's made to look like a comic book or graphic novel. I got no problem with that. Not always done successfully, but at least if it's picking a style and going, that's fine. But Frank Miller not only had written this, but this is the first and I think only movie still that he has directed.
And there's a reason why.
And it's because this movie is dog shit. I mean, first of all, he assembles this great cast who I assume he got in just because he's like, hey, I'm Frank Miller and I've written all these great, comic books and things.
Like Spin City. Jesus.
Spin City is a good show, though.
It is a good show. But did y'all like Sin City? Here's another one.
Yeah, and so they got all these people to appear in his movie. I mean, because and now the lead is this guy Gabriel Macht, who at the time I think was nobody. So I don't know how he got selected for it. The only thing he really went on to do is he started in Suits, the TV show, famous for being Meghan Markle being in that. But it's got Scarlett Johansson, Samuel L. Jackson, Eva Mendes, Jamie King, Sarah Paulson, Stana Katic, who I actually really like from the TV show Castle. She's in here with this horrible accent she's used in this
Is it a
movie.
New? I can't, it's a New Yorker accent, isn't it?
It's kind of it's a cartoonish New
New
York
Yorker
accent.
accent, yeah. Which she got way more. She was in this way more than I thought she was gonna be.
Yeah, she was.
I thought she was gonna be like a 1-2 scene girl, but she was actually
Jamie
in it more
King's
than I thought.
playing the spirit of death or something that we don't know what she was
They
supposed to
never
be
really
exactly.
explain who the fuck she is in this film.
But this movie is just a mess because first of all, it's got that noir kind of narration to it and the whole
Yeah.
tone of the movie. But it's like somebody doing a spoof of a noir because it's everything they say. Him talking about the city is my, whatever it is. The whole movie.
My lover, my everything.
It's just eye rolling to infinity. But the only person I think who knows what movie he's in is Samuel L. Jackson, because for the most part he's being Samuel L. Jackson like he always is, but he seems to be hamming it up total cheese. Like he knows like this is just ridiculous.
Can we talk about the Razzie performing winner, Louis Lombardi?
Oh my god, the guy who played like all the bald.
Oh my god, they're horrible, and they're given way too much.
Samuel L. Jackson's character has like this. Apparently, he grows these people. He like clones these like these bald like doofuses. They're like his henchmen, I guess, and they all have these dumb names that end in OS, whatever it is, whether it be Pathos, Athos, Eros, whatever.
Names almost
for no reason.
They don't die easily. But...
They're all completely morons and they're stupid. And it's
and then there's literally one point where he's growing one where it's a foot with a little head on it,
and it's just jumping around on the screen doing its thing. And so it's Samuel L. Jackson. Let me get back to him for a second. Sean took note very early on in the first, what was it, 20 minutes?
I got one word for you: eggs.
We started counting. It was like, wasn't like 7 references to eggs in like the first.
We were 20 minutes into the film, and in all of his dialogue, in his dialogue that he had so far, which was basically one long monologue to the spirit, he had referenced eggs, I think 8 to 12 times. And I was like, what the hell is with this egg reference? And then after he got done talking, I go, Brian, what is the over-under on how many more times he's going to reference eggs in these movies? I think we picked 4. And he did exactly 4.
What's funny is he noticed this. Sean noticed this. He goes, he took note of this and wanted to take the over-under. And all of a sudden, he just stopped talking about eggs for the entire movie until he gets to like the last, I don't know, half hour.
It's like 20, 30 minutes.
And he decides to bring it up like 3 or 4 more times.
And then, like, as we were like, he needs one more. It was kind of like in Super Troopers when he has to say "Mao" so many times, and it gets to like the last like 4 minutes of the movie, and you can see he's like, eggs. It's like
every time he did, he said it again. He said it again. But it was just funny because like I told Sean I'm not sure which would have been weirder, if he had kept talking about eggs the whole thing, or the fact that he talked about it so much and then abandoned it and it came back at the end. I'm not sure which would have been weirder.
It was almost like with Double Team where they kept making basketball puns and then we were like, okay,
until you expected it,
and then they stopped doing it when literally every moment that should have been a pun, they just didn't do it. Like, well, now you're just fucking with us. That was what was going on with this movie. But I mean, there's also this one weird moment where he all of a sudden dresses like Hitler and starts like doing like Nazi salutes. And I'm just like, is he trying to
comes out in her Nazi outfit? And I'm like, hey, Jojo Rabbit's mom was a Nazi after all.
And it's like one of those ones is like, I think he's trying to be like General Patton at this point, but it's all over the place. And let's not to mention the spirit thing. We're like, we're watching this, we're like, so what is he? Is he unkillable? Is he what's his power set? Because they never explain. Because he seems like he's super strong. It seems like he can get shot a ton, but he gets hurt, but he doesn't die. And we're like, did they ever mention this? We're like, no. And then finally at like, I think it was like, what, 30, 40 minutes left in the movie, we finally get the exposition dump where Samuel Jackson goes, even though I'm talking to spirit, I'm going to go ahead and explain what happened to you that night, even though you already fucking know.
You were there.
So the audience knows what happened, why he's like this, why I'm like this. So here's a 10-minute explanation of why this film is why this film's going on, which we should have had at the beginning of the film. And so we're like, okay, cool, let's pay attention so we actually understand what the hell's been going on for the last like hour and 20
You're
minutes.
distracted the whole movie trying to figure out like who is he? Is he dead? Is he undead? Is he alive? Is he just some dude fighting crime? We don't know. But then the movie like seemed to enjoy doing that because then there's like a whole thing with this girl who he apparently knew as a kid, who then grows up to be Eva Mendes' character, and we're like, and actually also with Sarah Paulson's character, we're like, wait, does she know who he is, or does she
was his
not know
fiance.
who he is? And we're like, we couldn't figure out. I'm like, I think she does, but then why wouldn't she know who? It's like all he's doing is wearing a little black mask, and you don't recognize him.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This doesn't stop you from knowing that it's me.
The same voice, everything, and it's
yes, you're not.
Maybe I give a pass to Eve Mendes' character because she originally hadn't seen him since she was a kid, apparently.
But like literally, Sarah Paulson's character, she has had his shirt off. I'm pretty sure she has slept with him as Spirit.
Yeah.
Are you telling me, as your previous fiance, you don't recognize a certain part? Like, let's be real here. Let's be real. You tell me you hooked up with him. You tell me that the sex didn't seem remarkably the same as your fiance was. Come on, movie. Come on.
And she's acting like she doesn't know who he is, but he's there, passed down on your table. You're not going to peek under the mask and see.
Exactly. It's
whatever.
That's always been a problem in superhero movies when like superheroes wake up unconscious somewhere and no one looked under the mask.
Yeah.
Who it was. Like, come on. Like you're telling me I would have done it in a heartbeat. Like, I don't know who that guy is, but now I know who he is.
But the movie's plot was all over the place. Each character was all over the place. The tone of the movie was all over the place. And just the filmmaking is in general, it was.
I also love that this is the second movie with Samuel L. Jackson where you open up a briefcase and it's just this bright light coming out of it. But it's just, wow, this movie was, and I think at the end of the movie, we were like, still not as bad as a lot of our stinkers. Because I think
that's just it. It was a bad movie, but I mean, it had some things visually that were at least interesting in the way it was done. It had, actors were at least trying for the most part, and so I like you said, it's not good by any means, but it wasn't going to be like my worst movie of the year or anything.
No, it really went for it, and but the dialogue is
it's awful,
so bad, but every actor went for it. They fully were like, there wasn't a single performance where I was like, well, they just weren't giving a shit. But like every one of them was going like, there was like, was it the French lady? We were like, who the hell is this chick now? Like I was like,
yeah, just some random person to show it. Yeah,
some French chick in a bikini who's walking around while it's snowing in a bikini and it's not cold. She just is there, And then you had like I said, the Pathos guys, which they just kept showing up, and every time they showed up, it was just like. It was like watching Bulk and Skull and Power Rangers, where every time they showed up, you're just like, oh my God, get them off screen. But yeah, it halfway through this film, like, there's a reason why Frank Miller doesn't direct films. This is why. Yeah. Like, why? Like, I think, didn't we look up how many producers there were in this movie, and like, why did no one try to step in and tell?
Yeah, there's like 8 or 10 producers, not even counting executive producers, like 8 or 10 producers on this movie. Now, granted, a few of them seem to be on there because they were like the head of DC Comics or whoever it was that made the source material, but still, it's just there's so many people on here and nobody was like, dude, this is not working.
Yeah, we were just like, someone had to have sent like Frank. Like, I'm surprised no one called Robert and just like, hey, can you like show up on set and just like say you're hanging out, but like really kind of just take over, because this movie's gonna bomb and it's gonna bomb bad. And it shocks me though that, like I said, this was same year as Iron Man and Dark Knight, correct?
Yeah. That
Scarlett Johansson and Samuel Jackson still stayed with the MCU after this, because it was just like granted, like Samuel Jackson was already in it because he's in the end credits of Iron Man, but that Scarlett Johansson and Samuel Jackson became what they did in the MCU after this film came out. Because yikes, not that they were really bad. Well, Samuel Jackson was bad, but Samuel Jackson played the role.
Scarlett was just kind of there.
Scarlett's just was kind of like this. Almost kind of like a Deadpool, like fourth wall. Like, she would just come in. She's the smartest one. She like say some stuff, dress, kind of slutty, and then leave. And then show up, dress slutty, say something that was smarter than everybody else, and then just leave.
That is between her and Samuel L. Jackson, even the rest of the characters. It's like just their wardrobes just seemed. It totally seemed like something that a guy who made the graphic novel was like, oh, this will look sexy, or this will look weird, and
Yeah.
also with no reason for them to be out dressed like that in the scene, like the Hitler thing and all that, and you're whatever.
It was bad. I don't believe Spirit's on anything.
It is also on HBO Max.
Why is all the shitty films always so easily accessible?
And the ones we want you to watch
are never accessible.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're now going to move on to my pick. This is a film that it's been a really long time since I've watched this movie, but I loved this movie when it came out, and to me, it still holds up. We are talking about I'm going to say the MTV generation, because it's basically an MTV film. The MTV version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. We're talking about The Faculty. The Faculty came out December 25th, 1998, had a budget of $15 million, had a weekend opening of $11.63 million. It was number 5 its opening weekend, and had a finished box office of $40.28 million. This movie, to me, is the epitome of what you and I have mentioned quite a bit on the show, where this movie has a cast from top to bottom of people we just love watching, whether it be from TV shows or movies in general. I love this cast, from the leads to just like the random people who are around the school who just show up. I love the cast of this film. I really like this movie. I really do. It is a little kind of over the top when it starts with like some of the, like it almost like with like some of the characters, like they just randomly pick up a kid and just ram his nuts into a flagpole, like just so like it's so aggressive. Like even Robert Patrick's coach is so aggressive to start the film, and he hasn't even been taken over yet. Like he actually was more calmer when he was taken over. So like it is a little overly aggressive to start, but like once the invasion starts kicking in, to me the movie just is great from then on. You got a fantastic cast with Elijah Wood, you got Jordana Brewster, you got Josh Hartnett, you got is it Famke Janssen?
Famke Janssen, yeah.
Famke, however you say your name. Robert Patrick, Sean Hattie, Salma Hayek, Usher, is it Clea Duvall? Clea Duvall?
Yeah.
It's a great cast. I love how they interact. This was definitely Josh Hartnett at his height. Like this is when Josh Hartnett was like heartthrob age. Elijah Wood was just before Lord of the Rings. Like he's 3 years before Lord of the Rings. So Elijah Wood was still kind of like
he just grown out of his kid roles, but
yeah,
he wasn't quite in Lord of the Rings yet.
It's like, hey, Elijah Wood's a teenager now. Like we can start doing some shit with him, kind of thing. I really enjoy this film. What are your thoughts on The Faculty?
Yeah, I mean, this is a movie, when it came out, I was really excited to see, because, I mean, this is, Robert Rodriguez had just done Desperado and From Dusk Till Dawn, and then you had this written by Kevin Williamson, who at that point had put out, his first 3 films were Scream, I Know You Did Last Summer, and Scream 2. And so to put the 2 of them together, it was like, this is going to be awesome. Did it live up to my full expectations? Not completely, but I think that's more because this was more, I guess it's a horror movie, but it's more of a sci-fi kind of horror.
I'd say it's sci-fi.
It's definitely more of a sci-fi
it's
movie.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. It's still a good movie. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. It just didn't quite reach the levels of like, Scream for me. But that's high expectations. But and the same thing with Robert Rodriguez. It didn't quite reach up to like, Desperado, because I love that movie.
Well, yeah.
But like you said, it's got this great cast of people who, there's some recognizable names at the time, but most of them were still like kind of up and comers. So they kind of took a chance on a lot of people who turned out to be, even if they weren't big stars, even people like Sean Hannity and that, who they've go on and have pretty solid careers, and he did a great job at it. But then they smartly sprinkle it in with a lot of adult cast who, you're going to recognize, whether it be Salma Hayek. Jon Stewart is one of the teachers in there.
I was going to say Jon Stewart. I forgot Jon Stewart.
Yeah. I love Jon Stewart in there with the pen in his eyeball. But it's essentially Invasion of the Body Snatchers to set, in a high school. And so it's a very simple log line. That's all it is. Like, hey, this Invasion of the Body Snatchers in a high school, Robert Rodriguez, Kevin Williamson.
Basically the Breakfast Club.
I'm sold. and it's fun. Is it breaking new ground? Is it winning the Oscars? No. But it was exactly what a lot of those kind of movies were in like the late 90s, where it's just, fun teen movie. But it wasn't like, too pandering and cutesy. It was still able to be exciting. It was still able to, be fun.
And hands down, probably one of the most over the top, vicious football games ever. like no penalty flags whatsoever for like clotheslining and then infecting every football and fireworks going off mid-game. It's like,
Yeah.
no, what's going on? But
it can't be Robert Rodriguez and not be over the top.
Oh no, exactly. But yeah, like I was saying when you were talking, it's basically Envision's Body Snatchers meets Breakfast Club. Because look at the cast. You've got the druggie, you've got the athlete, you've got the lesbian, you've got the most popular girl, prettier girl, cheerleader, whatever the hell you want to call her, and you got the nerd, and they're all forced together, and they basically have to. And the new girl, and they're all being forced together to try to figure out because they're the only ones who have not really been affected, and try to figure out how to stop it. And like I said, I love Josh Hartnett in this. Elijah Wood's basically being Elijah Wood, but at the time we didn't really know who Elijah Wood was as an actor then, because we just knew him as a kid actor. Which now you watch him and anything, I was like, oh yeah, he's basically Elijah Wood in this movie. But yeah, it made me miss Josh Hartnett because we haven't seen him in a lot lately, in a very long time. Which he does have a movie coming out next year that I'm actually excited about, even though it is Guy Ritchie directing it, which I hate Guy Ritchie. But I just really enjoy the cast. I love the aliens. I think the aliens looked great. Like even like the little forms, and then we get the big one at the end. I love the whole finale of it all. It does get a little over the top, but I think that over the top works with it. I even like the Famke Jensen final part for her when like the car. Like I love that that when he crashes the car into the bus, you see her like, now granted it's not really her, but you see like the body shoot out of the car. And you actually do see it land. I was like, good for you for shooting that all the way through and showing the little the crash dummy land to the ground. Like I it's like the little things like that. Like I said, I like the creature design. I like that it had like the hooks that like pull back like its lips so it can bite. Like I liked how like the style of it was. Like I said, the cast, everything's great. I think the dialogue works for that time frame. It doesn't necessarily work now.
Oh, it definitely screams 90s, but it's one of those things where it's like you watch it and it is a time capsule of the 90s, but it's not like, it doesn't feel like it in just like a totally roll your eyes cheesy kind of way. It's just that's what it was like.
Yeah, and then of course at the very end you have like, what was it, like Elijah Wood on like 18 magazine covers. Like no, it's like that ending doesn't quite work. But yeah, we forgot. I'm blanking on the actor's real name, but Shooter McGavin is Elijah's dad.
Oh, Christopher McDonald.
Yeah, Christopher McDonald. I like the whole part where like they're grounding him. He's like, this, and he's like, the porn. And he's like, take away your spank bank. And it's like, you realize he's a teenage boy. He doesn't need that. So he can still do whatever he wants. But yeah, I really enjoyed this film, and I'm glad that it's still held up for me. Like, obviously, it's not as good as it was in 1998, but I think for even now, for what was it, 23 years now?
23 years. Yeah.
23 years. I think it's still really, really solid sci-fi high school film. Faculty, is it on anything?
Nope.
Of course it's not.
Of course not.
Now we're going to our feature film. There are films that are just perfect, like movies that just come out. And when you think perfect films, I know people are thinking about like Oscar films and all this, all this other stuff, but like a Citizen Kane, which no, it's not. But then you have these other movies that just like, they have no business being as good as they are. They don't. But then you have a movie like this, and it's a movie to me that just everything worked on it, which is why it's our feature film, our final feature film of the year. It's Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest came out December 25th, 1999, had a budget of $45 million, had a weekend opening of $7.01 million. It was number 7 its opening weekend, had a finished box office of $90.68 million, $71.58 million domestic, and $19.1 million international. I mean, what's not to love about Galaxy Quest, Brian? What's not to love about this movie?
Nothing except for the fact that it was clearly like cut for PG. I'll get into that. But
and if you watch the documentary No Surrender, it really explains that why. Which I wish they would have come out with like a director's cut.
Well, here's the thing: is I get, so this movie came out and it was not a huge hit when it came out.
It wasn't a huge hit because when they put it out and what they put out,
it came out. I remember going to see this opening night in the theater.
Same.
I'm pretty sure I was one of like 2 or 3 people in this theater.
My
And
dad and I think maybe 5 people were in the film.
And I love this movie. It's one of those movies I went back and started telling everybody I know they need to go see this movie, and most of them would just ignore me. But the fact of the matter is, it's like it's Tim Allen was coming off of those Tim Allen movies from the 90s,
Well,
like
that
Jungle.
Toy Story 2.
Well, he had the animated stuff, yeah, but like
Yeah.
Jungle to Jungle and For Richer or Poorer were the 2 movies before this, and so Tim Allen was kind of like, whatever. But I mean, anybody who it's got Alan Rickman, it's got Sigourney Weaver. It had
then Alan Rickman. What was Alan Rickman doing besides the first Die Hard film? Like,
well, he done Die Hard. He done Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So he kind of made a name for himself doing a lot of villain roles. He was in a western called Quigley Down Under, I know. But I'm trying to remember what else he did in between there.
But, I mean, it wasn't like Alan Rickman was Alan Rickman now.
But he started doing a lot of dramas. He was doing Sense and Sensibility, Michael Collins, Dogma was the same year as this, actually.
Well, yeah, we did talk about Dogma a couple weeks
ago. So he kind of started showing off more of his dramatic chops after that. But I mean, I love the cast, and then of course the whole crux of the movie is that it's essentially this a kind of a spoof of, but also love letter to Star Trek.
I love that it embraced Star Trek and Comic-Con for the most part.
Oh, they absolutely did, because they took the archetypes of the characters. They took the alien first officer, essentially. They have the captain who's like this cocky guy, but how they turned everything on its head, because like the whole thing of like I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. But like how
I'm like, wait, like, what are you gonna say?
No, well, like how Sigourney Weaver was just like she was totally like, why would I wear this outfit? Why are you putting the girls in these outfits all the time, kind of thing.
What was your job? I repeated what the computer said.
Like, and then they have like, I remember what I was gonna say, because I remember talking about how like for like Scotty and Bones, for example, were always just so like uptight and crazy and wound up, and so they had oh my gosh, what's his name? Tony Shalhoub's character was just like totally mellow. They go the total opposite way. He's like, okay, man, yeah, that's cool. Let's do that. But they took all the archetypes, and of course, my favorite. This is the first place most people, including myself.
I was gonna bring it up, but yeah.
Took note of Sam Rockwell, the great Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, like granted, Green Mile came out the same year, but I didn't see Green Mile till like it came out on VHS and DVD and stuff like that. But yeah, this was my introduction to Sam Rockwell, Rainn Wilson, Justin Long. Like, this was my introduction to all 3.
Oh, Justin Long. I love Justin Long in this movie.
Granted, most people didn't recognize Rainn Wilson in this movie because he's one of the, I forgot what they're called. He's one of the aliens, which it's a blinking you'll miss him. Like, he's one of those that's just always standing there. Yeah. He doesn't really have a whole lot of lines, but if you look like, dude, it's fucking Dwight, kind of thing. But yeah, Sam Rockwell as a guy is just great in this film.
It's just the fact that he was like another character in this movie who is self-aware. He's like, wait a minute, there's all the stars and me, I'm gonna die. I'm the red shirt guy.
We're gonna do what we did in episode 45. Episode 45, yeah, that's the one I die in.
But the writing in this movie is so smart. I mean, it's such a dumb line, but one thing makes me laugh every time they do it is when they're on that planet. He goes, look, they're minors. He goes, no, they got to be at least not minors, not minors. Just little lines like that. It's just I love the writing of this story, and like I said, and this movie was made. I don't know if they were going for an R or PG-13, whatever it was, but they cut it down to a PG because they thought it'd do better as a family-friendly thing, especially because it's got that kind of Star Trek feel to it, which I can't fault them for that. They might be right in their decision, but at the same time, there's you hear things that were in the movie, or even just watching the movie, you see at least twice where Sigourney Weaver like mouths the word fuck, and they totally changed the word.
They basically they TBS'd it.
Yeah, but this was I remember in the theater, I'm like, that's not what she just mouthed, what she said.
That's like that doesn't match the audio with what she
said. But I just loved the self-awareness of it. I loved, like I said, that it's both a spoof and kind of a love letter to it. Justin Long's character, I love him, and of course he went on to do. After this, I saw him. He was in the TV show Ed, which I loved him in that, and he's gone on obviously to make a lot of great comedies for himself. So I really like him. So it's another one of those that just has a lot of great actors at the height of their career, and a lot of great ones just starting off that went on to do great things.
But then go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, and just the last thing I was going to say is, you kind of already mentioned it with the Comic-Con thing, but with Justin Long's character too, it's like it kind of makes fun of, but at the same time is a love letter to the fandom of it all. The people who take this thing so seriously, who it's such a big important part of their lives, and not only do they have this love for it, but in this movie, their love for it ends up like actually contributing and helping out, and they get to be a part of it.
I was gonna say when I cut you off, I was like, but that's the thing is like even with Justin Long's character, he ends up being the hero.
Yeah,
At the end of this film because of his nerdism of this.
He's the
film.
guy in the chair.
He's the guy. He's the guy in the chair. Without his love, or even him and his friends, Tim Allen and their crew wouldn't have survived. They wouldn't have been able to save the day. They all would have died. And like I said, that moment, and it says it in the documentary. That moment where he's just like, "Look, I get it. I know it's a show. I know it's fake. I'm not this loser. No, it's all real. I knew it." I love that moment.
Oh, and my favorite part. When he gets interrupted, they're like, "Where are you?" And because his mom told him to take out the garbage in the middle of
Mom, yours? Like, yeah, I don't care. Well, at least he's going outside. But like, there's just so many great moments in this film. I also love like when they're on the planet and Tim Allen sacrifices himself, and Alan Rickman's it's all about you. It's like, yeah, you would sacrifice yourself, and he's like, he's getting all pissed because he didn't get left on the planet with the aliens who were gonna eat him, kind of thing. But also the moment of the film when Tim Allen or Jason has to tell Mathesar the truth about that is the best acting Tim Allen has ever done. To this day, Tim Allen has never acted better than that scene. That is the best scene that he's ever done. And even because of the documentary, even Alan Rickman goes, he's finally acted. That's the first time he's actually acted in his life, right there, which is perfect dry humor Alan Rickman for that. But
at the same time, I also want to give a shout out to the guy who played I don't remember his name, the head.
It's
Enrico Colantoni, who I know from Veronica Mars. He was Veronica Mars' dad. He was great in that. But Mathesar, his character, and then when he realizes it, it's like, oh man, that was great.
Well, just even his delivery of Mathesar with the kind of like the way he changed his octaves for everything, or even like his there's that one part, like say you think about little parts of the film. It's when I think it's after they separated, and they're going back to Earth and they're going home, and he just goes on, and he just keeps like this. Like it's just like those stupid little mannerisms he does.
That's the thing is the way they do the aliens with the way they talk and the way they walk. It's so fucking stupid, and it could have very easily been just ridiculous. That's like could be in a stinker worthy movie with what they did with how the aliens act and talk, but then somehow it works. I don't know.
It's one of those weird things where it's like there's so much in here that could fail and be laughed at and could be stinker worthy for us on a show, but because of how well the cast, the screenwriters, the director, how well they just made it all work and truly cared about this film, it made it memorable. Like this film, I mean, granted, it did actually make a good chunk of money based off its budget. But like when it first started out, no one gave it a time of day because I don't think anyone really understood whether it was a spoof movie, whether it was being taken serious. Like the same thing goes with and you and I are both kind of agreeing on this. Like Walk Hard. Walk Hard was supposed to be a spoof movie about Johnny Cash, but you're watching the movie, it's like, this is actually like a good movie, not like a spoof movie.
Right.
Great. I'm not saying Galaxy Quest is in the same realm with Walk Hard. Walk Hard is a spoof, but it became its own thing that people didn't understand what this movie was. This is just kind of like, oh God, I'm blanking on Orville. Orville, everyone thought it was just supposed to be a comedy kind of spoof of Star Trek, but no, Orville's kind of just its own thing. And the Orville's actually a really good show with Seth MacFarlane. I cannot wait for season 3 to come out. But this has become I wouldn't even call this a cult favorite. This is a favorite among everyone. I don't think I've ever met anyone who is not beloved Galaxy Quest. Like there are people out there who don't like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, even though they're wrong in that mindset. And then there are other movies that we talk about as cult classics that we love, like Fifth Element, where there are people who are actively like, I don't like Fifth Element or I don't like Scott Pilgrim. I have never met anyone who does not like Galaxy Quest. I don't want to meet the person who does not like Galaxy Quest. But yeah, it's a perfect film. Like everything, it's got the great humor. It's got solid action. Like it's like I said, look at your cast. You're not going to have this blow away action moments, but the action that we're seeing in the film works with what we get. It's got heart. It's got emotional moments. Like I said, the moment when Alan Rickman's characters finally like embraces like his character when the one alien dies.
The guy is like, by Grabthar's hammer.
And
I
he
will
finally
hang you.
he just starts tearing up the other people, and like you finally see him again. He's like still fighting. He almost I think fights Tim Allen at one point, and his hair's like coming through his
Yeah.
and stuff. I love everything about this film. This film is perfect in its own little bubble, and I wish we got more, but I also don't want more because I feel like that they'll ruin it if they try to come back and do anything with it, which they can't now for obvious reasons because they don't.
They are. From like back as far as like 2016.
They were going to, but I heard they did.
They were going to do a follow up on Amazon, and then of course Alan Rickman died.
Yeah.
And so for the longest time after that, people kept saying, "No, it's probably not going to happen. We're not going to do it now. Do that." But then like every year, there'd be a little bit more hope, and there'd be a little more gain steam on it. And then I mean, as recently, I was actually just looking up right now, as recently as June 2021, there's apparently Simon Pegg and someone named Georgia Pritchett are working on developing it as a series.
If they're not going to do the original cast and they're going to recast everybody, fine, do it that way. But don't be.
Well, I know the earlier idea was it was going to have the original cast, but also introduce new characters. Now I don't know if it was going to be passing the torch or if it was going to be just intermixing them. But whether or not that is still the plan, I don't know. I will say having Simon Pegg on it gives me a little bit of hope for it because, like when he did Star Trek, he helped write those, and he clearly has a love for the material that he can kind of bring that to the project and make sure it's not just like a cash grab or something.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Anyway, Galaxy Quest. If you've never seen it, what the hell is wrong with you? If you have seen it, or you haven't seen it lately, go back and revisit it because Galaxy Quest is fantastic. Is it on anything?
You can watch it a bunch of places with ads: IMDb TV, the Roku channel, Pluto TV.
Let's be real, we have it on like Blu-ray.
You should already own it.
Yeah. Like we own it. We didn't have to go searching for it. Like we got it already. But yeah, so that is our episode, guys. That is the final episode for the Weekend Crusaders this year. We guys hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys did, hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming out next, or actually out currently, we have Spider-Man No Way Home non-spoiler and spoiler review with Brian and I as we talk about that film. We've got my Matrix Resurrection review. We have my end of the year massive reviews part 1, where I talk about National Champions, Sing 2, Rumble, Ron's Gone Wrong, and The Unforgivable. Part 2 is also out now, where I'm talking about Power of the Dog, Being the Ricardos, Encanto, Don't Look Up, and Home Sweet Home Alone. Oh my God. And I'm also currently working on part 3 of that as well. Like I said, there's just a lot of movies, and I'm trying to watch.
It's been like the busiest week for him at work. I don't know how he got in all these movies, but
I don't know. But that's I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Also, now that the season, Weekend Crusaders season for the most part is over, we will also be having our Weekend Crusaders end of the year video, where we will be talking about all of our favorite and non-favorite films that we talked about on the show this year. Plus, we will also be having our best / most surprising films of the year and our worst / most disappointing films of the year, as well as our most anticipated films for 2022. So what that means, so the next 2 weeks, we got a lot of videos coming out with Brian and I. So I hope you guys don't get too sick of us, because we're going to be talking about a lot of movies, a lot of stuff. There's some definite hot takes in there for a lot of films, and there are definitely some anticipated stuff that we are going to talk about. So be on the lookout. They're going to be dropping whenever I got time to do it. They're going to be done. We're still shooting. We're still doing a lot of things. There's a lot of new things we're going to be changing up here coming in the next year that we'll talk about on one of the videos coming up. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.